It was a regular afternoon at the small cafe tucked away in the corner of the city, where the hum of quiet chatter and the clinking of coffee cups filled the air. Maya had been serving customers for nearly 5 years, and today was no different. She wore her usual smile, carrying her tray with the ease of someone who had perfected the art of multitasking. Then, the door opened. A couple walked in, and for a split second, Maya froze. The man with the woman wasn't the cause of her shock. It was the woman. She looked exactly like Maya. Same dark brown eyes, same long black hair, same face that had been etched in her mind for years, since the day she had lost her twin sister, Leah. Maya's heart skipped a beat, her hands trembling slightly as she walked up to the couple. She couldn't breathe. Could it be? Was it possible that this woman, a stranger to her, was really her sister? Her mind raced with memories of Leah, the way they had played together as children, how they had promised to always stay close. But one tragic day, Leah had gone missing. Maya was told it was an accident, a fall in the woods that nobody could have prevented. She had grieved, but a part of her never stopped hoping that Leah was out there, alive. "Can I help you?" Maya's voice was soft, almost a whisper. She tried to compose herself, but her gaze kept drifting back to the woman, who could have been her twin. The woman smiled kindly, sensing Maya's hesitation. "We're just here for coffee, but you look familiar. Do I know you?" Maya shook her head, her lips parting to say something, but nothing came out. Her mind was too consumed by the overwhelming sense of déjà vu. "Are you okay?" the man asked, noticing her frozen expression. "You seem a little shaken." Before Maya could respond, the woman spoke again. "Wait a minute. Oh my God, I remember you now. We were in an accident years ago. You were there when—" Maya's heart raced. "What? What happened?" The woman's eyes softened. "I was the one who—" She stopped herself. "Never mind. It's not important. I didn't mean to bring up bad memories." Maya's confusion deepened. What was she talking about? Why was she mentioning an accident Maya had no memory of? She had to know more. "Who are you?" The woman smiled sadly. "My name is Leah, but I don't think you remember me." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "Leah? My sister?" Leah nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, Maya, it's me. I've been looking for you for years." Maya stood there rooted to the spot as the world around her seemed to spin. The stranger, the woman who had walked in just moments ago, was her sister. The sister she thought she had lost forever. Maya's mind felt like it was reeling, her thoughts tangled and wild. Her sister, Leah, standing right in front of her after all these years? It felt like a dream, like a memory that had been buried so deep in her heart that it was now resurfacing, too fast to grasp. "Maya," Leah whispered, taking a tentative step toward her. I can't believe it's really you." Maya's breath caught in her throat, her eyes never leaving Leah's face. But how? I thought you were gone." The words were barely audible as her hands trembled, unsure whether to reach out or pull back. "I don't blame you for not remembering," Leah continued, her voice thick with emotion. "I was told I couldn't return after the accident. They said She stopped, her eyes briefly flickering to the man beside her, who was quietly observing the scene. "They told me I was too badly injured that I shouldn't contact you. They thought it would be best if you moved on." Maya's mind was spinning in circles, the edges of the room blurring. "But why didn't you try to find me?" Leah took a deep breath, her gaze softening as she held Maya's eyes. I tried every day. But there were people who didn't want us to be together. People who kept us apart." Maya's chest tightened with anger and confusion. Who could do that to them? Why? It felt like her entire world had been turned upside down in the space of a few seconds. The man beside Leah, who had been standing, quietly until now, finally spoke up. It's true. I've been helping Leah search for you for years. We've been through so many dead ends. Maya's eyes narrowed, suspicion creeping in. Who are you? My name is Adam, the man said, offering a calm but wary smile. I'm a friend. I've known Leah for a long time, and when she finally found out about you, I promised her I'd help her find you. Maya's heart was racing. So, you're saying you knew all along that she was my sister? Adam nodded. Yes. But it wasn't easy, Maya. There were people, like I said, who didn't want you two to be reunited. We had to be careful. Leah's eyes were full of remorse, but also a quiet desperation. I didn't want to lie to you. I never did. But the people who kept me from you, they told me that if I reached out, you'd be in danger. So I had no choice but to hide. The weight of her words hit Maya like a wave. All those years of pain, wondering what happened to Leah, wondering why she had been left with an empty space in her heart. All of it had been for nothing. All of it had been part of a twisted lie. Her voice wavered as she spoke. You were out there all this time, and I never knew. Leah nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry. I never stopped thinking about you. But now we have to figure out how to make things right. Maya's head was spinning. There were so many questions, so many things she didn't understand. But one thing was clear. She couldn't lose her sister again. Not after everything they had been through. Where do we go from here? Maya whispered, her voice shaking. Leah reached for her hands, her grip gentle but firm. We start by being together again. We start by being a family. Maya nodded, the weight of the past still heavy in her chest but also a spark of hope. After all these years, her sister had found her, and this time, they weren't going to be separated again. The cafe around them seemed to fade into the background as they stood there, two sisters reunited, their hearts beating in sync after so many lost years. And with that, they both knew that whatever the future held, they'd face it together. The days that followed were a blur of emotions and realizations for Maya. She couldn't believe that after so long, Leah was finally back in her life. The pain of the years apart still stung, but there was a new warmth growing in her heart, a sense of healing that had been so long overdue. Leah and Adam stayed with Maya for the next few days, slowly piecing together the truth of what had happened all those years ago. As the pieces fell into place, the picture was clearer and much darker than Maya could have ever imagined. Leah explained how after the accident, she had been taken by a group who claimed they were helping her heal. But in reality, they had isolated her, making it impossible for her to find Maya. They told her that if she contacted her twin, there would be consequences, threatening both their lives. Leah's escape had been a result of Adam's persistence. Over the years, he had managed to gain her trust, offering a way out when she was finally able to break free from her captors. It was Adam who helped her start the search for Maya, but it hadn't been easy. They'd hit dead ends and false leads. The authorities had dismissed the possibility of Maya's existence, convinced that Leah's memory was faulty due to her injuries. I couldn't risk you being hurt, Maya, Leah said one evening, as the three of them sat around the small kitchen table in Maya's apartment. But now, I'm free, and I won't let anyone separate us again. Maya could see the pain in her sister's eyes, the years of fear and isolation. It was hard for Maya to fully grasp the horror Leah had endured, especially after so many years of imagining that Leah had simply disappeared. But now, seeing her sister sitting before her, trying to make up for lost time, Maya knew that everything was about to change. A few days later, after a quiet breakfast, Maya received a call that made her heart drop into her stomach. It was from an unknown number, but something in her gut told her it wasn't good. Maya, it's me. Leah's back, isn't she? The voice on the other end was smooth, but there was an underlying threat in it. I know you've reconnected. And you think it's over. But I assure you, it's not. Maya froze, her grip tightening on the phone. Who is this? I'm someone who's been keeping an eye on your little reunion, the voice replied coldly. You think you're safe now, but I'll make sure it doesn't last. You and your sister are part of something much bigger than you realize. And people like us? We don't let things like this slip away. Before Maya could speak, the line went dead. She stood there for a moment, the blood draining from her face as she turned to look at Leah and Adam, who were both standing in this doorway, having overheard the conversation. Who was that? Leah asked, her face pale. Maya shook her head, her mind racing. I don't know, but they know about us. They know you're back. Adam's jaw tightened, his eyes flicking to Leah, then back to Maya. This is exactly what we were afraid of. Whoever's behind this, they're not just going to let Leah walk away. Leah's expression was one of quiet determination. I knew they wouldn't. But we're not going anywhere, Maya. We've been through too much to be scared now. But Maya's heart was heavy with the realization of what Leah had been trying to protect her from all these years. The danger that was still lurking, the people who would stop at nothing to keep the sisters apart. She took a deep breath. We can't run anymore. We have to fight. Together. Adam nodded, his face grim but resolute. We will. I'm in this. All the way. Leah reached out, squeezing Maya's hand tightly. We'll face whatever comes, but no matter what happens, I'm not losing you again. The days that followed were a blur of planning and strategizing. Adam used his connections to gather information on the group that had kept Leah captive, a shadowy organization with far-reaching influence. They quickly realized that their reunion wasn't just a matter of finding Leah, it was now about survival. Leah's past was coming back to haunt them both, and the people who had torn their lives apart were determined to make sure that the sisters never saw each other again. But this time, Maya and Leah weren't going to hide. They had each other, and together, they would fight to expose the truth and bring those responsible to justice. As they prepared to face the coming storm, Maya couldn't help but feel a fierce surge of hope. After everything, after all the years of wondering what had happened to her sister, they were finally back together, and no one could take that away from them again. The tension in the air grew thicker with every passing day. Maya, Leah, and Adam spent long hours researching, trying to uncover more about the mysterious organization that had kept Leah hidden for so long. They knew the stakes were high now. If they didn't act quickly, they could lose everything again. Leah had kept so much from Maya over the years, not by choice, but out of fear. Fear for her sister's safety. As more details emerged, Maya could feel her own fears starting to grow. The people behind this were ruthless, and it seemed like they had their hands in every corner of the world, pulling strings from the shadows. Late one evening, Adam came back to the apartment, his face grim. I've got something, he said, dropping a folder on the table. It's not much, but it's a lead. We're getting closer. Maya flipped through the documents, her fingers trembling. There were encrypted messages, names of people who had been involved in the operation that kept Leah captive, and even some suspicious financial transactions that pointed to a network that spanned far beyond anything they had imagined. Leah's eyes scanned the information, her face tight with concentration. This is it. This is where they're hiding. They have a compound, somewhere isolated, a place where they've kept people like me. Maya's stomach churned. How do we even get to them? How do we fight people who are this connected? Leah's gaze softened as she looked at her sister. We don't do this alone. We have to expose them for what they are, but it's going to take everything we've got. I won't let them take you away again, Maya. I'll fight until my last breath. Maya felt a fire ignite in her chest. For so long she had wondered about her sister, feared the worst, and now that Leah was standing here with her, She couldn't let anyone tear them apart again. Not after everything they had been through. "We'll expose them," Maya said, her voice stronger than she had felt in years. "We'll make sure they never hurt anyone again." Adam's voice broke through the silence. "We need help. People who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty." "I know just the person," Leah said, her eyes darkening. "Someone who owes me a favor. If we're going to do this, we need to be careful. There's no room for mistakes." A week later, they found themselves standing outside an old, rundown building in the heart of the city. It was an unassuming place, hidden in plain sight, perfect for the kinds of operations they were up against. Leah had reached out to an old contact, a former ally who had helped her when she first escaped. His name was Marcus, and he had once been a part of the same network that had kept her imprisoned. Now, he was on their side, and he had valuable information about the organization's next move. The night was quiet, the air crisp with an unsettling stillness. Maya's heart beat loudly in her chest as they approached the building. This was it. The moment where everything could either come crashing down or finally start to unravel. Marcus met them at the door. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie and sunglasses despite the late hour. "You sure about this?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. Leah nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." They followed Marcus inside, into a dimly lit room filled with monitors and equipment. He quickly got to work, typing furiously on one of the computers, pulling up files that Maya couldn't even begin to understand. "Here," Marcus said, pointing to a screen that displayed a map. "This is their compound, the one you're looking for. It's located on the outskirts of town. Security's tight, but I've got a way in. We just have to move fast." Maya's pulse quickened. "This is it," she said, the weight of what they were about to do sinking in. Leah put a hand on her sister's shoulder. "We're doing this together, Maya. We can't back out now." But just as the words left her mouth, a loud crash echoed from outside the room. Maya's heart skipped a beat. Someone was here. Someone was coming for them. Without missing a beat, Adam rushed to the door, peering through the small window in the frame. "They found us," he hissed. "We don't have much time." "Grab the gear," Marcus ordered, already moving toward a wall of equipment. "We're getting out of here." The tension in the room skyrocketed as they prepared for the next phase of their plan. Leah and Maya exchanged a determined glance before grabbing the equipment Marcus handed them. "We've got one shot at this," Marcus said as he handed them a set of masks and communication devices. "If you get caught, there's no turning back." Leah looked at Maya, her eyes filled with both fear and determination. "Whatever happens, we stick together. We finish this." With a final nod, they moved quickly through the darkened hallways of the building. Maya's heart was pounding, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. This was no longer just about finding her sister. It was about bringing down an entire network of people who had destroyed lives and stopping them from taking any more. The last doctor before the exit creaked open, revealing the alleyway outside. But just as they stepped into the shadows, a voice rang out from the darkness. "Stop right there." A figure stepped forward from the shadows, his silhouette tall and imposing. It was the man who had called Maya earlier. The figure stepped into the dim light, his features sharpening as he came closer. Maya's heart stopped for a moment as she recognized the cold, calculating look in his eyes. It was the same man who had called her that morning, the one who had threatened her. "You," Maya breathed, taking a step back. "What do you want?" The man smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was twisted, like he knew something she didn't. "I think the real question here is, what do you want, Maya?" Leah stepped forward protectively, her eyes narrowing. "Stay away from her." The man's smile widened, and for a brief moment, there was a glint of amusement in his eyes. "I'm afraid it's too late for that. You're already involved, and now you're in way over your head." Maya's hands shook, but she held her ground. What do you mean? Why are you doing this? The man's gaze flickered between the two sisters. You think you're heroes, but you have no idea what you're up against. The organization you're so eager to bring down. We own everything. People like you and your sister are just pawns in a much larger game. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying this is all just a game to you? Not just a game, he said, his voice low and almost amused. A business. A very profitable one. And you two, he gestured between them. You're worth more alive than dead, but you've made things personal now. So, let me make you an offer, walk away. Go back to your quiet little life and we won't hurt you. Leah stepped forward, her voice a fierce whisper. You think we'll just walk away after everything you've done? After everything you took from us? You have no idea who you're dealing with. The man laughed, a short, bitter sound. You still don't get it, do you? The people behind this are everywhere. You can't escape us. We own the politicians, the authorities, and the media. One call, and your sister will be gone. You'll never even know where she's been taken. Adam's voice rang out sharply from the shadows, where he had positioned himself. You're underestimating us. This ends tonight. For a split second, the man's smile faltered, but he quickly recovered, his posture stiffening. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small device. It doesn't have to be this way, you know. I gave you an out, but you're making this difficult. The air in the alleyway seemed to grow thicker, heavier. The man pressed a button on the device, and suddenly, Maya felt a sharp pressure on her chest, as if the very air itself had become suffocating. Leah gasped and stumbled back. Get down! Adam shouted, running forward and knocking them both to the ground just as a sharp crack echoed in the alley. Maya's head spun as she landed hard on the ground, her breath knocked out of her. From the corner of her eye, she saw Adam scrambling to his feet, pulling something from his jacket, a weapon of his own. The man smirked, clearly unfazed by the attack. You really think you can take me down? You've just signed your own death sentence. In that moment, a gunshot rang out from the shadows. The man's smirk vanished instantly, and his body jerked back as he collapsed onto the ground, his hand still gripping the device. The alley went eerily quiet. Maya's pulse raced as she looked up. A figure stepped out from the darkness, their face masked, holding a silenced pistol. I think it's time to finish this, the newcomer said, his voice calm but heavy with purpose. Leah's eyes widened. Who are you? The man didn't respond directly. He lowered the gun, but his eyes never left the fallen figure of the man who had been threatening them. Doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I'm here, to help. You've been playing in dangerous waters, and you need more than just a few friends if you want to survive. Adam stepped forward, his hand on his own weapon. Who are you working for? The mysterious figure remained silent for a moment before answering. I'm working for someone who's very interested in what you two are doing. And trust me, you'll need all the help you can get. There's a bigger game being played, and your little crusade? It's about to become much more complicated. Maya's mind raced as she tried to piece everything together. What was going on? Who was this person? Was he a friend or just another player in the twisted game? Leah, still shaken but determined, took a deep breath. What do you want from us? The man finally removed his mask, revealing a face that looked surprisingly familiar to Maya. It was a face she hadn't seen in years. It was Marcus. Marcus? Leah whispered, her eyes widening in recognition. You're working with them? Marcus nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. No, I'm working with you. You're not the only ones with enemies. But we need to move fast. There's not much time. Before Maya could react, the sounds of distant sirens filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. We've overstayed our welcome, Marcus said, his tone shifting. Get out of here. I'll cover your tracks. Leah grabbed Maya's arm, pulling her to her feet. We don't have much time. This isn't over. It's just the beginning. As they ran toward the back exit, the weight of what was to come pressed down on them. The organization they were up against was vast, dangerous, and far-reaching. But now, with Marcus on their side, and more allies hidden in the shadows, they had a chance. And for the first time in years, Maya felt the spark of hope flicker in her chest. They weren't alone anymore. The group moved quickly, navigating the maze of alleys behind the building. Maya's mind was still racing, the weight of the revelation about Marcus hitting her like a ton of bricks. How could he have been involved with this organization, yet still come to their aid? She couldn't wrap her head around it, but there was no time to question him further. Leah, ever the warrior, kept her pace steady, though Maya could see the tension in her sister's jaw. They had just narrowly escaped a deadly encounter, and the storm wasn't over. "Where are we going?" Maya asked, breathless as they turned a corner. Marcus, leading the way with purpose, didn't look back. "To a safe house. I've arranged for a place where we can regroup and figure out our next move, but we need to stay low. The people we're up against are watching every move you make." Maya glanced back, half expecting to see shadows trailing them, but the alley was quiet for now. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted. "We've already lost so much," Leah muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "I won't lose you again, Maya." Maya squeezed her sister's hand, grateful for her strength, even if it was contagious. "We won't let that happen. We're going to finish this, together." By the time they reached the safe house, a dilapidated townhouse tucked in a quieter part of the city, the adrenaline had worn off, leaving exhaustion in its place. The house was unassuming, tucked away behind high fences, and it had all the hallmarks of a place that had been carefully chosen to blend in while keeping the world out. Inside, the house was sparse but functional. Bare walls, a few folding chairs, and a table covered in old maps and documents. There were more monitors set up in the back corner, indicating that whoever had been here before them was prepared for a fight. As they entered, Marcus started immediately getting to work, booting up the computers. Leah sank into one of the chairs, rubbing her temples, looking both exhausted and agitated. "I don't understand. Why did he just let us go?" Maya asked, glancing at the door, her nerves still on edge. Marcus paused and turned to face them, his eyes sharp. "The man you saw back there, the one threatening you. His name is Dorian. He's not just part of the organization, he's one of the heads. A leader of sorts. The only reason he didn't finish you off is because he wanted you to think you had a chance. He's toying with you. The moment you think you're safe, he'll strike. It's all part of the game." Maya's stomach churned. "So we can't just run away? We can't hide?" "No," Marcus said flatly. "Not from him. Dorian's not after just Leah or you. He wants the whole thing. Everything your sister knows. Everything you two know about the organization. He won't stop until you give it to him." Leah's hands tightened into fists on the table. "Then we won't give him anything. If he thinks he can just push us around, he's wrong." Marcus studied her for a moment, and his lips curled into a wry smile. "You've always been stubborn." "I learned from the best," Leah shot back, her eyes defiant. Maya could see the fire in her sister's eyes, and it gave her strength. They had come so far already. They had fought to be together again. This fight wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about making sure that no one else would ever have to go through what they had. "We need a plan," Leah said, standing up, her voice steady now, full of purpose. "We need to go on the offensive. The longer we wait, the more dangerous they become." "Exactly," Marcus agreed, tapping on the keys of the computer. "I've been tracking their movements for years. We've got intel on several of their safe houses and storage facilities. I can help you hit them where it hurts, but you're going to need more than just guns and good intentions." Maya stepped forward. "What do we need?" Marcus paused, his eyes darkening. Allies. Real allies. People who know how to bring them down. You can't do this alone. The organization is too vast, too connected. Leah nodded. I'll do whatever it takes. There's a network of resistance, Marcus continued. It's scattered, and it's not much yet, but we can pull them together. They've been watching from the shadows. They've seen what's been happening, but they need a leader. Leah's eyes met Maya's, and for a brief moment, the weight of the responsibility fell onto both of them. But Maya saw the determination in her sister's eyes. She wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. You're right, Leah said quietly. We need to rally them. We need to take this to them, make them feel what we've been through. Marcus looked at them both with a quiet sense of respect. I'll get in touch with my contacts. You should rest. Tomorrow we start organizing. We'll bring down the whole damn organization. As night fell, Maya lay awake in the small dark room, her thoughts whirling. Despite everything, despite the danger that loomed over them, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming. The storm wasn't just about them anymore. It was about everyone who had been affected by the organization's grip, everyone who had been forgotten. She thought of Leah, her sister, who had fought through so much, and realized that, for the first time in years, they had a real chance to not just survive, but to end the cycle. She closed her eyes, readying herself for what would come next. No matter how dark it got, they would face it together. Tomorrow would be the beginning of something new. The morning came far too quickly. Maya woke to the soft glow of sunlight, filtering through the dusty curtains of the safe house. The events of the night before seemed almost like a dream, but the urgency of what lay ahead snapped her into focus. There was no time to waste. The organization they were fighting wasn't going to give them any more time to rest. If anything, they would be coming for them harder now. She rose from the bed, finding Leah already up and pacing around the room. Despite the weight of everything, her sister's energy was unmistakable. The fire in her eyes hadn't dimmed since they'd learned of the full scope of the threat they were facing. We can't afford to sit still, Leah said, glancing at Maya as she grabbed her gear from the corner. We need to move now. We need to get to the resistance before they even know we're coming. Maya nodded, pulling on a jacket. We can't waste any more time. If we wait too long, we'll lose our chance. Marcus had been on the phone most of the night, getting in touch with the scattered contacts he had from his time with the organization. He promised he had a few allies who could help them get to the heart of the operation. If they could get close enough, they might be able to disable some of the organization's most dangerous assets, while cutting off their connections and influence in the process. As the three of them prepped, Maya's mind kept drifting back to Dorian, the man they'd barely escaped from. He wasn't just a high-ranking official in the organization. He was a puppet master, pulling strings, controlling everything in the shadows. Maya's instincts told her that their battle wasn't just about surviving, it was about stopping him from ever gaining more power. Soon enough, Marcus finished his call and came over to them. His face was tight with purpose. I've got good news and bad news, he said. The good news is we've got eyes on their primary base of operations, a facility on the outskirts of the city. The bad news is that it's heavily guarded, and the person in charge there? It's Dorian himself. Leah's jaw tightened. I knew he was too close. We'll go after him then. Marcus raised a hand to stop her. It's not that simple. Dorian won't just let you waltz in. He's got backup, and a lot of it. It's a well-guarded compound with high-tech security, mercenaries, and surveillance. It'll take more than just brute force to get in. We need to cut off their power supply, disrupt their communications, and weaken them before we go after him. We've got the resistance, right? Maya asked, still feeling the weight of the challenge ahead of them. How soon can we get them in place? Marcus glanced at his watch. I've arranged a meeting with the leader of the resistance at a location nearby. If we're going to make a move on the compound, we'll need their help. They've got resources, explosives, tech, and people on the inside. But you need to be ready for the possibility that it might get ugly. Leah's eyes burned with resolve. I'm ready for ugly. We've been through hell already. Nothing's going to stop us now. Maya could feel the same strength building within her. There was no going back. There was no more running. They were in this for the long haul now, and they would bring down the organization, no matter the cost. The meeting with the resistance leader was tense, to say the least. The underground group, who had been watching the organization's every move for years, was full of hardened individuals, people who had lost family members, friends, and loved ones to the organization's grasp. It was clear from the start that they didn't trust easily. They had been in the fight for so long, with little to show for it, that the stakes were personal. The leader, a woman named Ava, eyed them all with suspicion as they sat in a dimly lit room at a dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts of town. She was tall, with short-cropped hair and sharp, calculating eyes. "I've heard about you," she said to Leah, her tone cool but respectful. "But I need to know more than just stories. I need to know why I should trust you. You want to take down this organization. What makes you so sure you can do it?" Leah didn't hesitate. "Because I've lived it. I know how they operate. I've seen their tactics firsthand. And I'm not afraid to die trying to end them." Ava studied her for a long moment, and then turned to Marcus. "And you? You used to be with them. How do we know you're not playing both sides?" Marcus, who had been unusually silent until now, met her gaze unflinchingly. "I've burned every bridge with them. If you want proof, I can give you all the intel you need. But we don't have time to waste. We're the only ones who can take them down from the inside." Ava seemed to consider this for a moment, then nodded sharply. "All right. I'll send some of our people to help with the sabotage. But you need to move quickly. Dorian won't wait for you to get your act together." Hours later, they were back on the move. The resistance had planted explosives on key parts of the compound's outer perimeter, ready to disable the security systems and force the organization into a defensive position. But it wasn't just about brute force anymore. They needed to be smart. They needed to strike fast, hit hard, and make sure Dorian couldn't escape. Maya's heart raced as they approached the compound, huddled in the back of a black van. Her thoughts kept racing back to everything they had endured. How Leah had been taken away from her. How they'd been kept apart for so long. It had always seemed like an impossible dream to be here, standing on the cusp of something so dangerous, so risky. But now that they were so close, she could feel the weight of it. She glanced at Leah, whose face was calm, but her eyes were filled with the same fire that had been in them since the beginning. They were unstoppable together. "This is it," Leah said quietly, meeting Maya's gaze. "We're taking them down, for good." Maya nodded. Together. As the van stopped, the tension in the air was palpable. Marcus's voice came through their earpieces. "Ready when you are. We've got one shot. Don't miss." Leah took a deep breath. "Let's finish this." They all stepped out of the van and into the shadows, ready to begin their final assault. The compound loomed ahead, a fortress of concrete and steel, surrounded by high walls and layers of security. The tension in the air was thick as they moved through the shadows, the sound of their footsteps muffled by the soft hum of the night. Marcus, now in full tactical gear, led the way. His expression was grim but focused. He didn't need to say much. His eyes spoke volumes. They were close now, so close they could almost taste the end of this nightmare. "We've got about 5 minutes before they realize something's wrong," Marcus whispered into the comms, his voice low. "The charges should disable their security systems, but we need to move fast. Once the alarms go off, it's game over. Dorian won't." Liga nodded, her jaw set. "Then we move faster." Maya's heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing in her ears. This was the moment, no turning back. As she adjusted her gear, she thought of everything that had led her here. Years of wondering, of waiting, of living in the dark. And now, standing side by side with her sister, with Marcus and the resistance, she knew they were about to finally end it. The walls around them were eerily quiet, the only sound the distant rustling of leaves and the faint hum of security cameras moving overhead. They approached the main entrance where 2 guards stood, clearly unaware of the chaos unfolding on the other side. "On my mark," Marcus said. Without another word, Leah and Maya stepped into position, crouching low as Marcus pulled out a small device and pressed it against the security panel. There was a soft beep, and the heavy door clicked open. "Go," Marcus muttered. In an instant, they were inside. The place was buzzing with activity, but it wasn't the chaos they had hoped for. The silence before the storm. It was too calm. Maya's gut told her that something was off. They moved quickly, taking the hallways with purpose. Every turn, every shadow, every open door felt like a trap. They passed guards, who remained blissfully unaware, their attention diverted elsewhere. They made their way to the heart of the compound, where the most vital parts of the operation were being run. Maya felt the weight of the building pressing in on her. The air was thick with tension, and she could almost feel Dorian's presence, like a shadow looming over them, watching their every move. They couldn't afford to be slow. They couldn't afford to make a mistake. Suddenly, an alarm blared, through the halls, loud and shrill. "Shit," Marcus muttered, already moving faster. "They know we're here." The lights flickered, and the compound erupted into chaos. Guards rushed through the hallways, their radios crackling with frantic orders. The battle had begun. Leah moved first, her steps precise and calculated, as she knocked out 2 guards near the main control room with swift, silent efficiency. Maya followed closely behind, her heart racing, but her focus sharp. This was their moment. They had trained for this. They had been preparing for this day for years. "We're almost there," Marcus said, checking his earpiece as they neared the command center. "Dorian's on the top floor. We'll take the elevator. Stay alert." As they reached the elevator, Marcus held up a hand. "We don't have time to wait for it. We'll take the stairs." The stairwell was narrow and steep, their boots clanging against the metal steps. Maya's legs burned with effort, but she pushed through. They were close. They could feel it. Every step brought them closer to Dorian, to the heart of the operation. Just as they reached the top floor, a figure appeared at the end of the hallway. Dorian. His presence was magnetic, and in that moment, everything seemed to freeze. He stood tall and calm, dressed in a tailored suit, as if he had all the time in the world. His cold, calculating eyes scanned the group, his lips curling into a small smile. "Ah, the prodigal sister returns." Dorian's voice was smooth, taunting. "I've been expecting you." Leah's hand tightened around her weapon. "You won't get away with this, Dorian." "Oh, I already have," he replied, stepping forward with a slow, deliberate pace. "You really think you can just waltz in here and destroy everything I've built? The world doesn't work like that, Leah." "You're wrong," Leah snapped, her eyes burning with fury. "The world works the way we make it. You don't control us anymore." Dorian's smile widened, a glint of amusement in his eyes. "You've always been so naive. You think this is just about you? About me? No. This is about something much bigger. This is about power, Leah. The kind of power that can't be stopped." "You're right about one thing," Marcus spoke. Up, his voice full of resolve. "It is about power. But the kind of power you're chasing? It ends here, right now." Dorian's eyes flickered to Marcus, a momentary flash of recognition crossing his face. "You. I wondered when you'd show up. Still playing both sides, I see." "I'm not on your side anymore," Marcus growled. "And you're going down." Before Dorian could respond, The building shook with an explosion. The wall beside them crumbled, debris raining down as a blast ripped through the compound. Ava and the resistance had done their job. The outer perimeter was falling apart, and the facility's defenses were crumbling. But Dorian didn't flinch. He stood there, unfazed, his cold eyes locked on Leah. "You've made a mistake, Leah. This will be your undoing." Maya could feel the air grow heavier as Dorian took another step toward them, the power in his presence undeniable. This wasn't just about taking down a man. It was about ending an era, stopping the system of corruption he had built. Leah's voice was steady, filled with purpose. "You're right about one thing. You'll never control me again. It ends now." Before Dorian could react, the door behind them exploded open, and a group of resistance fighters poured into the room, led by Ava. The battle that followed was swift. Dorian's confidence faltered for a moment as the resistance swarmed into the room, forcing him into a corner. But as the chaos unfolded, Maya's heart began to race again. She knew they couldn't let him escape. Not this time. Leah and Dorian locked eyes, the final confrontation inevitable. "This is it," Leah whispered. "This ends now." With a swift motion, she lunged forward, her weapon trained on Dorian. The tension in the room reached a boiling point. Dorian, once so composed and confident, now seemed to hesitate for just a split second. He glanced around at the growing number of resistance fighters surrounding him. His eyes flickered to Leah, then back to Maya and Marcus, and for a moment, Maya saw something rare in his gaze. Fear. It was fleeting, but it was there. Leah didn't wait for him to make a move. With a speed that came from years of training, she lunged forward, her gun steady in her hands. Dorian barely had time to react as Leah's shot rang out, a resounding crack that seemed to echo through the room. But Dorian was faster than they had anticipated. In a blur of motion, he twisted to the side, narrowly avoiding the shot. The bullet tore through the air, hitting the wall with a sickening thud. Dorian had been prepared for this. He always had. An escape plan. With a sneer, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. "You really think you can end this so easily?" he taunted, his voice cold. "This is bigger than any of you. It's not just about me or about your precious little organization. I control things that none of you can even begin to comprehend." Before Leah could respond, Dorian pressed a button on the device, and the lights in the room went out in an instant. The alarms blared louder than ever, a deafening sound that reverberated in the confined space. The room was plunged into darkness. "No!" Maya shouted, feeling the surge of panic rising within her. She couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything over the blaring alarms. Then, a flicker. A small light blinked on in the corner, casting a faint glow over the room. It was the emergency lighting, but it was weak, barely enough to make out shapes. "Get down!" Marcus shouted, pulling Maya to the ground just as a burst of gunfire ripped through the air. The resistance fighters scattered, taking cover behind pillars and debris. But Dorian was gone. In the chaos, he had slipped away, vanishing into the shadows. "No!" Leah cursed, standing up from her crouched position and firing into the dark, hoping for a hit. "He's getting away!" "Not for long," Marcus growled, moving quickly to the control panel. "I can track him, but we need to act fast." Maya's heart was pounding in her chest. They had been so close to ending this, to taking Dorian down. But now he was on the move again, and they couldn't afford to waste any more time. She turned to Leah, whose eyes were blazing with fury. "We can't let him escape, not now." Leah nodded grimly. "I'm with you. He's not getting away." A few moments later, Marcus had located Dorian's escape route, a hidden elevator shaft that led to an underground parking garage. The group quickly regrouped, taking the path through the labyrinthine hallways that led to the hidden exit. The compound's security was still in disarray, but they could feel the clock ticking down. Dorian wouldn't be far ahead. and if they didn't catch him soon, they would lose him in the maze of underground tunnels. As they neared the parking garage, a gunshot rang out, narrowly missing Marcus. "Damn it," Marcus shouted, pulling them back behind a large pillar for cover. Leah peered around the corner, her eyes narrowing as she spotted Dorian on the other side, crouched behind a vehicle, his face twisted with rage. "Move in," Leah commanded, pushing forward without hesitation. But Dorian was waiting. He had anticipated their next move. As they advanced, he activated another device, a blinding flash of light that temporarily blinded them all. Maya staggered back, her hand instinctively reaching for her eyes as the world around her turned to white. For a brief moment, everything felt like it was in slow motion. Dorian's figure was just a blur in the chaos, moving faster than anyone could track. "No!" Leah's voice was a growl of frustration, and in that split second, Maya knew what needed to be done. Leah wasn't going to wait any longer. She had seen the escape plan, the path Dorian would take, and there was no way she was going to let him slip away again. The time for hesitation was over. With a surge of adrenaline, Maya and Leah surged forward, guns raised, hearts pounding. The world around them was a whirl of noise and confusion. Shouted commands, the screech of tires, and the sound of footsteps that were just out of reach. They ran faster, closing the distance. Dorian had nowhere left to run. He turned toward them, a cold grin on his face. "You're too late." Leah's voice was low and deadly. "We've been too late for too long, Dorian. This ends now." In one swift motion, Leah raised her gun and fired. The shot rang out, the sound of it deafening even above the noise of the chaos around them. Dorian gasped, stumbling back as the bullet hit him in the shoulder. He dropped to one knee, his smirk gone, replaced with pain. He gritted his teeth, clutching at the wound, but his eyes were still filled with defiance. "No, you don't understand," Dorian growled. "This is just the beginning. You think you've won? You haven't even scratched the surface of what I control." Maya's hands shook as she stepped closer, her own weapon trained on him. "We've already won, Dorian. Your game is over." But before Dorian could speak again, he suddenly collapsed forward, his body limp. Maya's heart skipped a beat. From behind him, Marcus stepped forward, his weapon still raised, his face set in stone. He had made sure Dorian wouldn't escape again. "Just making sure it's done," Marcus said quietly, his voice low but firm. Leah stood in stunned silence, the reality of the moment sinking in. The man who had haunted them for so long, the mastermind behind all the suffering, was finally down. But the job wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. Maya took a deep breath, her hands still trembling from the adrenaline, and turned to her sister. "It's over. We've won." Leah's eyes, filled with a mixture of exhaustion and relief, softened. "For now, but there's still work to do." The room fell silent, and for the first time in years, Maya felt the weight of their journey finally begin to lift. They had done it. They had taken down the man who had torn their world apart. But as Leah said, it wasn't over yet. There would always be more to fight for. But today, they had taken the first step toward true freedom. And together, they would face whatever came next. The dust had settled. The chaos in the compound had died down, and the resistance had begun clearing the wreckage, making sure every corner was secure. The air was thick with exhaustion, but there was also a quiet sense of triumph. Leah and Maya stood side by side, watching as Marcus and Ava coordinated with the rest of the fighters. The battle was over. Dorian, who had been the orchestrator of so much pain and suffering, was finally gone. And with him, the dark empire he had built. The organization that had kept them apart for so long was crumbling, piece by piece. But as they stood there, their gazes met, and they both knew that this wasn't just about the victory. It wasn't just about Dorian's fall. It was about everything they had been through together, everything they had lost, and everything they had reclaimed. Maya took a deep breath, her heart still racing, but now filled with something stronger than fear. Hope. Hope that they could rebuild. Hope that the world wasn't entirely ruled by shadows. Leah turned to her, her expression softened by years of grief, but now clear and unwavering. "We did it, Maya," she said, her voice quieter than usual, as though savoring the moment. "We actually did it." Maya smiled, a small but genuine smile. "Yeah, we did. We're still standing. Together." The weight of everything they had endured could no longer hold them back. The years of separation, of pain, of uncertainty were all behind them. For the first time in ages, Maya felt like she could breathe again, unburdened by the weight of the past. Ava approached them, giving them both a nod of respect. "We've got a lot of work to do, but you two are the reason we're all still standing here." Marcus followed closely behind, looking over at the sisters. "You were right about one thing, Leah. You've always been stubborn, but it's that stubbornness that got us through this." Leah chuckled softly, a real smile breaking through. "I guess stubbornness does have its perks." But even as they celebrated their victory, they knew that there was still work to be done. The remnants of the organization weren't completely gone, and there were still enemies out there who would try to rebuild what had been broken. But for now, the world felt just a little bit safer. The darkness that had hung over them for so long was beginning to lift. And as they stood together, in the ruins of the compound they had just dismantled, Maya looked at her sister, the one person who had been by her side through it all. She knew that no matter what happened next, they would face it together. Besides, battle was far from over, but the hardest part, the part that had taken them years to overcome, was finally behind them. And with that, Maya and Leah had everything they needed to build a future, one where they weren't just surviving, but truly living. Together they had already won.